Hey everybody, it's Sarah Walsh, Conservation Director, and I'm here in the snowy woods again to share with you all some part 2 of mammal tracks. We received so many notes from people who really appreciated our last video, so we're going to make another one. And thank you to everyone who sent us pictures of their tracks that were out in the woods. I actually got to see beaver tracks in the snow that were sent to us, which was very, very interesting and a really unique track. So if you have a chance to look that one up, definitely do. So there are some different tracks today that I want to share with you all, and we're going to go take a look. So here's our first set of tracks. You can see those are sort of groups of 3 or 4 feet, kind of walking or ambling along. If we get a little bit closer, you can see that these are bigger tracks than what we've dealt with in our past video. So if I put my hand down, you can see how large that track is. And we had talked about how dogs were kind of a narrow track and how they might penetrate into the snow. And you can see from this track that it seems very light and on top of the snow. Now, I was really happy to find this track because I am pretty sure that this is actually a bobcat. And we had one on the property and near the property last winter, but we hadn't seen it for a while. And this looks very much like the tracks from last year. So that's how I know that it's a bobcat. Also, because it is so high off the ground in the snow and it's so light, if you think about a cat and how gently they move and walk when they really want to, they have a very light step, and that actually shows in their track in the snow. So that is how you can identify a bobcat. So we're still looking at our bobcat track here, and the camera will focus in a moment, I think. But one of the things that I brought in the field with me today as sort of an advanced technique idea is just a simple measuring tape. So you can actually get right down on the track and you can see how many inches bigger this is than like a rabbit track, for example. So from the toe to the end of that foot is almost 3 inches long. And if you look at that, if you have a ruler or whatever, that's a decent sized footprint. And so you know that that animal is pretty large. So one of the things you want to look for is the size of the track. And I'll give you an example of how to compare to other tracks that you see to understand how large an animal actually is while you're comparing tracks and looking for tracks out in the woods. So here is the next set of tracks that I want to share with you all. You can see there's multiple sizes of tracks here. But the ones that I want you to focus in on are these little tiny ones. And I'll put my hand down again to show you for scale. There's my hand and there's the track. So the track is about the size of a thumbprint or a fingerprint, or maybe even smaller. And you can see they're kind of near the base of this tree. And the other thing that's really interesting is if you look carefully, you can see there's a gentle line in between some of the feet. And so that gentle line is actually a tail drag. So we know that this is an animal that has a tail. It's very small and it likes to hop about. Those of you who might have gerbils or hamsters don't have a long tail like a gerbil does. But what's a similar animal that would live in the woods? If you guessed a mouse, you're absolutely correct. And so these are actually teeny tiny little mouse tracks in the snow, and the tail drag actually is the giveaway here. There are other small mammals that live in the woods, but often with that tail drag, it's most often a little mouse who's out in the woods. Let's apply our advanced technique. Remember we just looked at the bobcat track, and that was about 3 inches long. Go to about there. If we compare it to this track, so let's do it right here. This track is only 1 inch long. And so since this track is so small, we know that this comes from a very small animal. And so that helps really narrow down your search when you're looking through those guides of what you're looking for. You're looking for a small animal with a long tail that might drag it in the snow, and you can really see the streak of the tail drag here. sort of just down this middle area. And that's how you can tell. Now, there are two species of mouse that are in the northern woods. One is a deer mouse, and the other one is a jumping mouse. And the jumping mouse often will be on its hind feet, very similar to a gerbil, and that can sometimes be when that tail gets dragged. It's very difficult to tell between the two species unless you're looking at their teeth. So today we won't have the opportunity to do that, but we do know that we can narrow it as far down as a mouse, which I think is totally cute here in the woods. Just a quick shot here. I always call these like little highways, but you can see these are little mouse tracks. And you can see this is a little mouse highway as they cruise around the bases of trees and through the snow, searching for food. Here was another track that really jumped out at me today while I was walking in the woods. You can see over here, this is one of those scratchy tracks that we saw in the last video, which we know now is squirrel. But if you look here, this is 2 single paws and then 2 single paws. And it has this bounding motion that kind of goes like this, like a seesaw. Boop, 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 boop. And I know this just from experience, but they call that prunking. That kind of mellow movement of 2 feet and 2 feet and 2 feet. This kind of movement is actually one type of animal, and a family of animals, I should say. So it's actually the weasel family. Now, the weasel family is very interesting. It has lots of cool members of that family, including the otter. Otter tracks would be much larger, and you'd also often see a belly slide in the snow, which I have seen before while I've been out in the woods, and is a spectacular sight. In this case, it's a very light, small print. And I would say, based on the size of that animal, we could have either the American marten, which they tend to like more evergreen forests. We here are in a northern hardwood stand, which means that we don't have as many trees that stay green all winter. And so I'm thinking that this is probably most likely a fisher. Now, a fisher is a larger member of the weasel family. They have also been called a fisher cat. And they're interesting because they're one of the only woodland creatures that has the chutzpah to actually take a porcupine off the tree and eat that for dinner. I am almost certain that this is some member of the weasel family based on those sets of 2 tracks that go kind of loping. And so that was very exciting to see. Now, I am cheating a little, only a little, because I do know that there have been fisher seen in these woods. I have a neighbor that has taken photos of them, and same with the bobcat. So there is actually a photo of the bobcat in one of the yards not too far from this preserve. And so I have a general knowledge of what is here in the woods. So when I see these tracks, I can say, that looks like last year's bobcat. So I think that that's another take home for this is as you get good at learning tracks and where they are, you also really get this really interesting sense of place, which is why I love tracking myself. And I hope that you guys are looking down more often to appreciate those that are trying to survive in these conditions, but it also gives you a sense of place and who else is living in the woods around you. So mammal tracking is a great thing you can do at home or while you're out on an MHLC preserve, around the bird feeder we talked about before. So I hope this continues to bring you guys joy. Keep sending us comments and pictures. It's been absolutely fun to share this with you guys. And I'm hoping, if there's interest, to do a winter mammal, how we eat in the winter kind of a video.